So welcome back to In the Company of Charity, the podcast of the Daughters of Charity. And I just want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas. We know that we're into the third or fourth day of Christmas now, in the Christmas season. And I am joined by one of Santa's favorite elves, Sister Liz Schoberg. How are you, Sister?
Hello, everybody.
How you doing?
I'm doing very well. You know, Christmas was such a special time this year, you know, being able to be with our families. And when I say families, I'm talking about the families that we work with at our ministry, and just, you know, giving toys to kids and all that good stuff, you know. And then you have your churchy festivities, which for us, we do the Christmas novena, which is really, really special, and just culminating with that Christmas Eve. And we had a really, really nice time, and everybody sang well, and they had a little pageant. It was, I mean, I could go on, but it was really adorable.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, we had the same. We had a lot of gift giving, a lot of different programs that the churches were doing. We had our own wrapping experience with some of our refugee moms who came to wrap gifts probably for the first time. And they thought it was an interesting endeavor. One family we know wrapped up everything, brought everything home, and just gave it to the kids. They were quite short. Yeah. And so, you know, I said, hey, Christmas is Christmas. You do it whatever way you do it. But they had a lot of fun together, learning how to wrap gifts and picking out things for their children. So it was great. It was great. And it's still, to be honest, it's still going on. We're still getting gifts and toys for kids. And so we have some birthdays coming up, and we have Little Christmas, of course. So we're gonna keep going with the gift giving. And just really
listen, Three Kings, Epiphany. It's a great time to celebrate.
There is nothing like watching kids open gifts and just get excited. You know, we have a couple of young guys. They're 11, and everyone keeps saying, "Oh, they're not going to want toys. They're 11 now." Well, they got their hands on one motorized car, and it was all over. That thing was everywhere. I thought, you know what? They are 11, and this kind of stuff is just exciting. So it was great. It was just great to see their joy and their delight, and it was fun. It was really fun. And that kind of leads us to our episode for today. I had a great opportunity to talk with Sister Mary Bader, who is the director of St. Anne's Center for Children, Youth, and Families in Hyattsville. It's a ministry our community has been in for many, many years. And so I just had a great chance to talk with her and hear the updates of the ministry. As the name of the ministry indicates, it's a transitional housing and an educational center for children, for youth and families, and they're just doing some really wonderful work. So it was a great episode to have at Christmas, you know, thinking about the Holy Family and some of the struggles that they went through, and just how, you know, we're still reaching out to vulnerable moms, vulnerable families, trying to help kids just reach their best potential.
Yeah, and Sister Mary's a real pillar for that ministry, and the way that it has continued to stay at the forefront over time, I think it really speaks to her vision and her dedication. And, you know, as someone who's in that social work type field, she really is somebody to be admired and imitated in her way of listening to the people they serve, and also having a grander vision of what are the needs of the greater community. And if we need to, you know, make some changes, if we need to revamp or switch gears, you know, she's not afraid to do that. And you'll hear a little bit of that in the interview.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things we didn't talk too much about in the interview is that Sister Mary has been an educator for many, many years, and you know, has been a principal of schools, and just is such an amazing advocate for children, but also recognizing, you know, children are part of a larger family, of course, and so being supportive of of mothers and of families that are struggling. She's been valiant, and as I said, such an advocate over the years, and of all the years I've known her in community. And so it's just really it was really great just to have a chance to talk with her about this ministry. And as you say, one that we've been involved in for many years, but that has changed over the years as is needed. And she, as you say, is going to talk more about that in the interview. So I think maybe we just let Sister Mary get started, and we hope everyone enjoys this. Continue to enjoy your Christmas breaks and your Christmas celebrations. And remember, we're still in those 8 days of Christmas and still celebrating the birth of our Savior.
Yep. And always keep in mind that we are praying for you, and we'd love to hear your feedback. So enjoy it, everybody.
So I'm delighted to be in the company today of Sister Mary Bader. Sister Mary Bader and I have been friends in community since I came. You were already here, and I came about 23 years ago, so it's been a long time. And Sister Mary is currently working at St. Anne's, what used to be St. Anne's Infant Home. When I did my seminary apostolic, went out, left the seminary for a few months, went to St. Anne's Infant Home, and spent time in infant and maternity home, and I rocked babies who were crying, and worked with the teen moms at the time. So, but we're going to let Sister Mary tell us a little bit about what St. Anne's does now, what the full title is, because it's been through some transition. So, give us an idea what the mission of the project is, what you do, what your ministry is, and about the work of St. Anne's today.
Okay. Well, I am currently on mission at St. Anne's Center for Children, Youth, and Families. And as you've heard from Sister Elizabeth, our name has changed. And the mission, though, still remains the same. And our mission is 160 years old, almost 160 years old. And our mission today is to provide homeless, pregnant, and parenting women and their children a supportive transitional housing program so that they can journey from homelessness to stability and wholeness. We provide not just the housing for the mothers and their children, but we also provide the supports that they need to lift themselves from the state that brought them in to St. Anne's in the first place. We have an array of supports in addition, as I said, to the housing. One of them is child care. Our Early Head Start program provides child care for the younger children that aren't in school. Many of our mothers are coming to us pregnant. Some are coming already parenting. And one of the reasons that they're homeless is because they don't have child care. And the reason they don't have child care is because they can't afford child care and they don't have a job. And that circle of poverty and what keeps a mother in poverty and homelessness is somewhat alleviated because of our ability to provide for their children. We have an education and employment program that helps moms that need either a GED, in some cases they need English as a second language. And with that, some of our mothers are in college and job training programs. We've had several mothers who have graduated from four-year universities and some that are in the community colleges. Others are, as I said, completing GED. We have an employment counselor who works with the moms to help them find that career path that they're looking for. Initially, it's usually an entry-level position that allows them to start earning and get some work experience and perhaps education, and then moving into a position that they can be able to support themselves and their families with. And of course, our social work, clinical and social work services program meets many of the needs of the women that are more related to their emotional or mental health as well as their individual situations. So those caseworkers and our psychologists and clinical social workers assist them in those areas as well.
So you said in the beginning it's 160 years this ministry has been with the Daughters of Charity.
That's
that
right.
We've been at the helm. And so I think what's fascinating for me, again, having been there 20 years ago, we still were focusing a lot on on children who were being removed from their family home, maybe because of abuse or neglect. There was a small kind of high school where young women could go. And so I realized that I think one good thing that we talk about a lot as Daughters of Charity is that we try to continue to look at the needs in the present and not just hold on to ministry because that's what we've been doing and that's what we do. But as society changes, as the levels of poverty change, as the forms of poverty change, our ministries have to change. And so where St. Anne's is today is not where it was, certainly not where it was 160 years ago. But so you've been there how long now?
I've been at St. Anne's 14 years, and I was also working at St. Anne's before I was a Daughter of Charity for 7 years.
Wow, see,
different
I
role,
remember that.
a different role.
Yeah, I didn't remember that.
Completely different role. But
so you have a long history with the ministry.
I do.
And so how do you feel that St. Anne's has been able to continue to progress, to change in light of the changes in poverty, the changes in needs for women and children? How do you see the charism, the Vincentian charism, having informed that and allowed this ministry to continue on at the same time? It's not today what it was. You know, St. Vincent tells us that all the time. You are not now what you will be.
Exactly.
And you are not, you know, that is so much a part of our charism, and we see that so well lived in the ministry of St. Anne's. You know, where do you see it has come from? And I guess the other question is, how does somebody even approach this ministry? How does somebody who needs the services come there in today's world? But first, talk just a little bit about the transitioning nature of the work.
Sure, and you're right about what St. Vincent de Paul said. We are not today what we will be, and he also said to the sisters early on in their ministries, be creative to infinity.
Absolutely.
And I've seen that in the history of St. Anne's long before I was even involved in St. Anne's. And if you look at that history, you see how the daughters and the staff, the lay staff, have been very committed to being creative and really meeting the needs of women and children at the time. So back in 1860, when we were founded in Washington, D.C., 2 blocks from the White House, the Civil War was rumbling. There were rumblings about the Civil War starting, and there were a large number of orphans, particularly infants, that were being left in the streets or born to women who weren't able to care for them. And there were also pregnant women who had nowhere to go and needed a home. And the 3 Daughters of Charity came from Emmitsburg, Maryland, to found what was called St. Anne's Infant Asylum at the time. Now, they didn't include the maternity piece, I think, in the name, probably because it was meant to be hush-hush. But the work was indeed to care for infants that were orphaned, as well as pregnant women who really had nowhere else to go. And through the years, our focus has remained on the infants, not even just infants, but children and mothers-to-be. At one point, that orphanage piece became more of a large group home for foster children. And at times, up until the 2010, we would have 50 or more, sometimes 100 children ages newborn to 12 living at St. Anne's as foster children. Some of them might have been adoptable, but most weren't. And at the same time, we had a home for the language at the time might be unwed mothers, but later Now we still have that program for teen mothers-to-be. So we've always looked at the needs that are very prevalent in our society that kind of fit into that category of women and children. And sadly, in Washington, D.C., the number of homeless individuals, and in particular women and children, has grown throughout the decades because of the lack of affordable housing. And about 10 years ago, well, 20 years ago, we recognized that there were women who were leaving our teen program and not able to find a place to live that was affordable, so we built an 8-unit apartment building for them. And 5 years ago, we realized that we didn't need to provide a program for foster children, but at the same time there was this huge need for housing for mothers and mothers-to-be who were homeless. And so we took the children's area of our building and turned it into supportive transitional housing, which is the greatest need at this point for this population.
Right.
And then we added on to it as a way of really not just being a shelter, but being a program that lifts the women and the children from their situations out of poverty and homelessness to a point where that they could be independent. So we added the support services. So the high school that we had for pregnant women before became more of a GED and a life skills, comprehensive life skills that are so needed. And our social work services expanded and to include more of the clinical pieces to address the emotional needs of the families. And we added on employment counseling. And that is where we are today because that is the greatest need.
Yeah, I think, and that's I think such an important point is to be able to say we continue to see and look at the signs of the times.
Absolutely.
And the changes in how poverty manifests itself. So the stigma, maybe, of being an unwed mother in the old days, is no longer that same issue. But the issue now is certainly that support services are still not available to someone who is experiencing homelessness, is experiencing homelessness as well as being pregnant or parenting a young child. That those are still obviously incredibly important and still part of the mission of St. Anne's, which
Very
is
much.
To me that I just think as we look at any mission, at any ministry, it's important for us to look at how has it been adapting to the signs of the times and the needs, the contemporary needs,
and
being
to keep
more
it
relevant
effective
and being more effective
relevant.
And relevant,
because what you're touching upon with the being relevant is something that has come from the closing of our children's program, where we were taking care of the large number of foster children who were placed at St. Anne's because they had either been abused or neglected or both. And our ability to really impact their lives and change their lives and assure those children that their life was going to get better was very minimal, because we were charged with caring for them and we provided outstanding care. There's no question about it. But then they were often returned home or returned to put in a traditional foster home that really might not meet their needs. But again, they were still feeling the repercussions of having been abused and neglected and removed from their homes. And we couldn't do anything about it. But now we have mom and child, or children together. And we can be more proactive, and we can provide them with the tools and the skills and the services, whether it's mental health or health services, all of the pieces that they need so that they don't get to the point where the children are removed.
Right, exactly.
So it's so much more proactive and so much more beneficial to everybody.
Yeah, it's a great ministry. It really is. So logistically, and kind of how does it work? Like, what is what's the process for a woman who might be in need of services at St. Anne's, and then what might her typical day look like?
All right.
Or is there even a typical day? I guess
There's never a typical day, but there are a couple ways that the mothers find us. One is, especially with the teenage young women, they are usually referred to us by social services or juvenile services. So they're often a ward of the state in one of those two areas. And they come to us and are placed with us, usually pregnant, sometimes parenting, and sometimes both pregnant and parenting. And they stay with us for quite some time until the courts place them in a more permanent setting because of their ages. Although we do get some teens that are homeless and are not in a system, and we care for them and then move them into our supportive transitional housing once they're of age. The mothers who come to us for our supportive transitional housing are generally coming to us on their own, and they have found us through social media, through word of mouth, and sometimes from social services, even though they're not committed to any part of the child welfare system. They just hear about us. Now, they might have been in foster care in their life. In fact, many of them have been in foster care.
They themselves
Yeah,
were in
they
foster
themselves
care.
were in foster care. And they come to us because we're not an emergency shelter. We don't just automatically tell somebody to come over, we're ready. Because we don't always have spaces, and we're at capacity right now. But we are a program, and so they have to commit to being part of the program, because there is structure. There's structure for them, there's structure for their children in terms of we have curfews, we have levels of independent living. Some need more structure than other families, and they have to be part of this, utilizing the support programs, particularly the life skills classes, which are essential to helping them move up. They have financial literacy classes. We have health, pediatric health, maternal health, adult health. We have quite a few classes on nutrition and cooking, and then we have some things that are as basic as how to use appliances in your new home now, because you might not have had that experience, as well as other things that are more cultural. The theater comes in and they do a program. Each mother does her own video of her life story in whatever capacity they want. So they have to commit to that, so that we can ensure that they are moving on and leaving St. Anne's different than when they came in. Yeah.
And so the success is to see that change, is to see development, and again, taking someone who's in a place of struggle doesn't necessarily mean she doesn't know how to do all of this. It could be that either that progress has been interrupted, poverty creates the lack of experience, as you said, if some coming out of the foster care system themselves, they might not have had these experiences in how to manage. But it sounds like the goal is, in the success of for each woman would be that that she is now on a path to independence, and for the child,
absolutely,
it is less likely that they will end up themselves in foster care, that could be averted by giving folks skills that they may not have had, that could be frustrating to the point where they may not be able to handle it, and situations arise. I mean, we see it all the time.
The time.
How do we get to the front of this? Not, as you say, not to be reactive, but to be proactive.
So
let's get in front of this, and let's try to decrease the number of children that may end up abused or in foster care.
And each family comes with its own history, each mother. Some of them, as I said, were raised in foster care or had some experience. Some are victims of domestic violence, trafficking. Sadly, that is a very common threat to the younger women, the teenagers especially. Traffic, we have refugee, undocumented. We have women of families of different faiths, Muslim, Christian.
Having no faith, maybe
Yeah.
they've never experienced.
Yeah,
You
but
know.
a lot of them are very active in their in a church. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have a lot of different church groups. Very few are Catholic. I think right now we have one, but who's very active in a church. But the other Christian, many of the women are weekly church attendees and very involved in a church. We have a lot of different Catholic and other Christian Baptist groups that come in and do some of our life skills, and they do have different support type prayer groups and
And I would think those relationships would be important as a woman leaves,
Absolutely.
especially to
Yes.
know that she's not leaving completely alone. I know,
they have a faith family.
yeah, I know. We're
Faith
having
community.
worked with homeless individuals in the day center setting of Daybreak and Jericho Way and Macon and Little Rock, that the isolation that can happen after somebody leaves a supported
Yes.
setting, in a setting where they're kind of developing with other people and feel a camaraderie because they're like, people are like me and we're dealing with the same issues. Then they launch. There's the time when they leave, and there can be a real isolation. So, is there aftercare? I guess that's probably not a good word.
No,
but
that's
is there-
what we do. We call
Yeah.
it aftercare, and even the federal government calls it aftercare
Aftercare,
because
yeah.
we sometimes get a federal grant and they ask about aftercare, and yes, we do. We have gatherings of the current women, our families, as well as those who aren't with us anymore, but who are out in the community. And a lot of times we center it around back to school, Christmas,
Yeah.
and other times throughout the year. But with back to school, then we provide them with back to school items for the families,
Yeah,
as
that's
well as
great.
and Christmas, help them with Christmas. But and then they're always encouraged to continue to use the Child Care Center, to use our employment and education program if they need that, and our social work services program, so they can come back for that anytime.
Well, it sounds like you really, it's incredibly comprehensive, and
it's all on site.
And it's all on site. I
all
was just going
on
to say,
site.
and it's in one space. So
Everything but birthing babies, although we did have one once.
Something
On
you can't
site.
avoid. I was going to say, baby comes when a baby comes.
A baby came yesterday. We had
Wow,
a baby born
wow.
yesterday. Not on site, thank God.
Yeah. I used to say that a lot to the women in the day centers and the homeless shelters. Say, we love babies, but there is no birthing babies here. We do all kinds of other things, but and then inevitably some child is going to decide to be born.
Yes.
But so tell us, if somebody who's listening and says, I'm interested in this. I'm interested in this ministry. Maybe they just want to know more about it. Maybe want to get involved. They might be in the area. Tell us where the St. Anne's is, where it's located, and then how would somebody who either wants to make a donation, wants to volunteer, just wants to come and maybe talk with you a little bit more about this, how would they do that? What's that look like?
Well, first, where are we? We were founded in D.C., Washington, D.C. We are literally on the District of Columbia, Maryland line, and we are on the Maryland side of a road that separates the two in Hyattsville, Maryland. And we're not far from Catholic University, if anybody knows that area. But to come and visit, we have people visiting all the time. We have volunteer opportunities galore, whether it's giving a life skills class or taking care of children, watching children in the evenings when the mothers are in life skills classes. We have a mentoring program for the mothers. And there's just an array of things. We have one woman who's been coming for 50-some years who does everything. She plays bingos. We have bingo night, very popular for the families. once a month, and she.
It's so very Catholic of you to have a bingo
Oh, we
night.
we do. Very Catholic. Very
It's great.
Catholic.
It's
yes.
great. Yeah, we have a little bit in there.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, and it's
Yeah.
very popular.
Yeah.
But there are other ways too. We get a lot of donations, and we need people to sort through clothing and stuff.
So they could find this all on the website?
On the website, yeah.
Yeah.
And our website is www.stanns, and that's STANNS.org.
Okay, well, that's
And
pretty easy.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
an easy one to remember.
Or they can call me.
Yeah, and we'll make sure that there's a link on
Okay.
the notes. So if you're interested at all, check the notes for this episode, and you'll be able to find the link for her website, and or just go by if you're in the D.C. or Hyattsville area.
come by.
And ask for Sister Mary Bader.
And I live there.
So I heard her on the podcast, and I want to meet this amazing woman and what she does.
And there are a lot of amazing men and women who work there.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm sure of that. So what's one thing you would want us to either pray for, to know about your work, something you want to leave us with that those who are listening can, kind of take this maybe to their friends, but especially, is there something specific you want us to focus on in prayer or in...
I think prayer, yes. We always need prayers for St. Anne's, but really in prayer, and even just with walking the streets or looking in the paper and seeing how there is no affordable housing. Perhaps in your area, but certainly in a lot of the urban areas there's not a lot. Just keeping in mind that the people that are homeless are not homeless and because they choose to be.
Right.
They're homeless because our society makes it very, very difficult to break out of the cycle of poverty, and sometimes the other health issues that we might have. But I want to make it very clear that most of the homeless do not suffer from mental illness.
Right, that's a great point. We could do a whole episode just on that.
So
it's a great point.
The stereotypes that we see, and people like to be talked to and said hello, and not just how are you doing, but tell me your name, and oh, I see you're wearing a veteran's cap. Thank you for your service to our country. Or to a woman who's struggling with with a child in her hand and clearly stressed out about something. Can I help you? It's just being aware and realizing and keeping in mind that we're talking about human beings, and everybody aspires to be in a different spot.
Yeah.
All of our families.
Yeah, we talk often in the podcast because of Ascension. Of course, we talk often about the sense of the incarnation of Christ in those who suffer, and that we find Christ in the poor and the poor in Christ. And so, for our faith tradition, obviously, that's an important thing. Our charism tradition is important, and I would think, again, that those who are listening, as you're saying, to combine both prayer and action, that we remember that the life of Jesus was not an easy one either, but that he called us through these 2,000 years to be loving, and to be attentive, and so that when we do see somebody, that we reach out to them, and as we had talked about, kind of trying to get to the front of something, not always being just reactive but proactive, that those actions can be the one moment of recognition that someone has, that somebody looked me in the eye today and acknowledged my presence, acknowledged that I was struggling, and gave me, just one hand, lifted me just a little bit more, so that maybe they could find their way to St. Anne's and have that even be more uplifted in the love that the ministry gives. So thank you for that. Let's all be more aware, keep our eyes open, and remember that when we see those who are suffering, we're seeing the suffering of God, and reaching out is reaching out to him, but also reaching out to the suffering that we all experience in one way or another. So thank you so much for what you do at St. Anne's and how you've helped that ministry grow. I know You stand on the shoulders of many daughters of charity.
Oh, many wonderful women who brought St. Anne's to where it is.
Yeah. So thank you so much. And
thank you for.
Let's get back to work.
Thank you for urging me to do this. Thank you.
All right. This has been In the Company of Charity podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.